Can't hear you. Nope. Hold on. Are you muted? Now you better.
Cello! We're back for the NFL playoffs of the 2024 season. What's up, buddy?
Dude, my favorite time of the year, really, other than the NHL playoffs, but I really do enjoy playoff football. I mean, the regular season, week 18 was rough, man. It's just hard to watch meaningless games like that. It's such a bad product. But yeah, dude, I'm pumped. I don't know how you feel about it. I'm really upset last night about what's going on in Los Angeles. Obviously, I mean, that was out of control. I can't even fathom it. I don't know if you've seen the pictures. It looks like a freaking apocalypse.
I know. Good. I'm glad you brought that up. And that's, we have obviously a lot of customers there, but just friends, family. It's terrible what's going on. Our heart goes out to everybody there.
Scary.
And look, it's I'm glad most people are safe. It's obviously horrible to lose, property and possessions and things like that. But there's nothing like just being safe on the human level.
Yeah.
And,
I don't think there were that many deaths. Thank God.
Right.
I mean, most people got out of there and got evacuated.
Either way, just terrible. So we're thinking of you, everyone out there, all our customers, friends, family who are struggling or just dealing with that whole shit. And hopefully it'll be over soon. Look, you're obviously more excited about this weekend than I am because my team has been bounced. I'm happy that the Ohio State Buckeyes got a game on Friday night. And
I think it's amazing how incredible they've been playing. I mean, they're the favorite, right, to win it. I mean,
we are. We are.
Got to be the favorite. Yeah, makes sense. Playing the best.
It's actually we're like minus 110 to win the whole thing right now.
Not bad.
I just hope they keep playing the way that they've been playing. Now your Steelers, you got your full Steeler regalia on today, but what is that? What hat is that?
So this is not a Steeler hat. This is a band that I like called Shinedown, but it's very similar. It's black and gold. And I got my Hines Ward jersey here. I mean, he did not make the 15 finalists for the Hall of Fame this year, even though he was nominated again. But he'll get there eventually.
His second time?
Yeah.
It was funny when we saw him on the sideline of that. What
Arizona State. He's a assistant wide receivers coach for Arizona State. Yeah.
Wow.
They got a little unlucky because their best receiver, who's going to be a high draft pick, hasn't played in weeks. I don't know what his injury was, but he's a superstar kid, and ASU didn't have him. But I mean, how great was Scatico in that game? Oh my God.
You know, it was great having money.
Yeah.
On ASU, and I know all you guys had Texas.
Yeah.
It was so great in our group text string to just keep writing his name.
I know, man. And by the way, the size of his legs. I mean, he is a fucking beast.
And he's kind of short, right?
Yeah, short and stocky. Like he there's a lot of guys like that have made it in the NFL that have these huge legs that are like, what about Natron Means? Remember that guy?
Oh my God. Yeah, of course.
A very similar build, just low to the ground and tree trunk legs. But listen, this weekend, I don't know what's going to happen at SoFi Stadium. I think they're going to play the game there. But if they're going to contingency plan would be Arizona.
I don't think they're going to play the game, and I'm actually happy about that because I was so I rushed in to bet the Vikings, and we'll get to that. It'll be our last game, but I rushed in to bet the Vikings after they lost to the Lions, and that line came out at 2.5.
And you got a bad line. Yeah, you got a bad
line. I thought
it
was cheap, and I thought it would go to 3, so I jumped on it. And if that game location is changed, all bets are refunded.
To Glendale. Oh, really?
That's a Vegas rule. The game must be played at the location and the time that's stated on the ticket. And if it's not, then all
what will you do at WANA with, for me, I have a 5-team parlay with that game as the last game. Will you just make it a 4-teamer?
I don't change it at WANA.
Oh, you leave it. Okay.
I leave it. And I started doing that with COVID, and I kind of, we established an internal rule that as long as the game is played on the same day.
Right.
yes, then if it switches because that happened a lot during COVID. They were moving
Correct.
stuff around, and
Yeah, they would move games like they were playing games on Tuesday nights.
right. There's been other situations like hurricanes,
Sure.
where a location gets changed, and it's so much easier to just leave people's bets.
Yeah, right.
And assuming look, I think, and it's an interesting point, because I think in this game, if they move the game to Glendale, it would actually become more of a Minnesota favorite, because it's officially now a neutral field.
Yeah.
And on a neutral, they're 2 points better.
Correct.
And so you just throw off that whole dynamic if it goes neutral. But I think it's looking like that might happen. I don't know. We'll see what happens with these fires over the next 48 hours.
Sure.
Let's start with the card, and we're going to go off. There's no contest lines this week, so we'll just go purely off wannamakeabet.com.
Sure.
We ended week 18 going 2-3. Our make or break was that Minnesota game, which we liked the Vikings.
God.
And we ended up the season 44-44.
We were 500. 500.
Exactly 50%. I can't believe it. 44-44. And it was a dumpster fire with the NFC South. We were dead wrong about both of those games. We thought the Bucs would blow out the Saints. The Saints came and played so hard in that game. They got a horrible start. The Bucs did.
Yeah.
And once again, Bryce Young, as he did from the middle of the season on, was comfortable. They were competitive. They were determined to win that game and go out on a high. They actually ended up doing it. And what's crazy is that during the game, I don't know, how many of these Atlanta players were scoreboard watching, but Tampa was losing. So you can't say, they just said, fuck it. I mean, there was for most of the entire first half at 1:00 last week, people on the Falcons should have believed that they could have been, winning the South and going to the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that game was an indictment on Atlanta's defense. And that proved to me what I kind of knew all year, is that defense was a flawed unit. They weren't able, when it counted the most at home, when you needed that to win that game, to make a playoff, to get a playoff position, to let up that many points to a mediocre team, a young quarterback, is unacceptable. It reminded me similarly to what the Colts did in their must-win game at the Giants. I mean, they made Drew Lock look like Joe Montana.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those teams don't belong in the playoffs. I'm sorry. This is an offensive league. I get it. Everyone likes to watch offense, but you're not going to win anything if you can't stop the other team. And you don't belong in the playoffs if you don't have a defense that's at least representative of that type of football, where you can get a team off the field when you need to. And neither of those teams can, and they don't belong. They're right where they belong, which is not in the playoffs. Now, Tampa Bay is a team. We'll get to that game. I don't think they have a great defense either. So I don't know how. I guess
they're not alone. There are, I want to say, half the teams that are going to the postseason have defenses that either are at or barely above league average in defense.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
including the Ravens, including the Bills. I mean, these are not teams that have highly rated defenses.
I do understand that, and they have exceptional offenses, but I feel like the playoffs, everything becomes, players become tighter. Every mistake is magnified. Games change on a dime. It's super, super important to be able to get off the field on 3rd and long. These things really matter. And I know Dan Campbell is going to be aggressive and go for it on 4th down. And I know the Bills go for it a lot on 4th down too. And even that becomes a lot more challenging late in these games, that when they really matter. I mean, this regular season stuff is gone. So you make that decision like Dan Campbell did last year at San Francisco. I mean, he cost his team the game when they didn't get that. So he's going to get up there like he did and say, that's how we play. And I feel confident in my team. And you know something? That's great, all well and good. But when you're risking everything on one play, no matter how good your team is, anything can happen. You could get a deflected pass. You could get a bad snap. You could get a guy step on the quarterback's leg. Anything can happen in that moment that will make that one of the worst decisions you've ever made in your life.
Or best.
or best.
I
So
know. Believe
I'm
me,
just saying,
I
like,
mean, look at what the Chiefs did with Mahomes. They converted some essential fourth downs with him.
unbelievable. I mean, Andy Reid, listen, the guy's an offensive genius, but you still have to execute the plays, right? I mean,
That's right.
early in the year, you look at that Eagle game, like Saquon dropped an easy pass in the flat, right? That they threw on, and everyone was criticizing Sirianni for not just running the ball in, making them use their timeout, kicking the field goal. And meanwhile, the play was there. He was wide open. But what happened? He didn't execute. He dropped the
Yeah.
ball. So that can happen.
Let's get into the card. Starting off with on Saturday afternoon at 4:30 is going to be the Chargers visiting Houston. I've been going back and forth on this all week.
It's 2.5. Chargers are minus two and a half.
The threes are out there depending on your book at wannamakeabet.com. It's 2.5. So let's say that's the number. I think there's it's a widely held opinion that, at least from the professional, better side of things, that Houston is sort of the favored side here. I don't know what you think about that. I go back and forth with like how poorly Houston played down the stretch, especially on offense.
Yeah.
The penalties that they get, I think it's a coaching advantage for the Chargers, and so that makes me sort of swing back toward the Chargers. I think it's going to be easier for Houston to play defense against this offense compared to like what they had to face in a lot of the games where they didn't look good this year. Then again, they had some shitty performances. I don't feel strongly about either side.
Yeah, you seem like you're just waffling. You don't have any.
Yeah.
I have a real opinion on this game. I think the Chargers have proven themselves to be a really tough out. I think I have not been impressed with Houston most of the season. You've talked specifically about just how many penalties they get, how they shoot themselves in the foot. Obviously, they have no Diggs. Obviously, no Tank Dell, the horrific injury. They're down to one wide receiver. I always thought Mixon was a good runner, but in this spot, I mean, I've been super impressed with Herbert and what Harbaugh has done with him. I mean, he has thrown 3 interceptions the entire season. He's like one of only 3 quarterbacks ever to do that with the number of touchdowns or number of attempts that he has had in a season. So I'm very confident. I don't know about the 2.5. When I bet this in the parlay, I thought 2.5 was a good number, but I just remember last week, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, right? I mean, these games can be closer than you think. A lot of times these teams will, weird things will happen with the number. And, I could see the Chargers maybe winning this game by 1 or 2. So I do have money line action, but I have the Chargers winning this game. I think they've proven themselves defensively. The defensive line, I think, is going to give Houston some problems. I like the way they run the ball with Dobbins, who's now healthy again. And the kid, Ladd McConkey, has been, a revelation draft pick. I mean, he's just absolutely on fire with Herbert. The one thing is Quentin Johnson has not practiced this week, and Palmer. These 2 guys have not practiced. So, I would like to see them both get back in there because Houston, the Chargers are obviously a much more dangerous team when they have a full complement of receivers. And I'm not I don't know about Disley if he ever came back, the tight end, but I think the Chargers are going to have enough. I love their defense. Derwin James is playing at another level. They still have Bosa. They have Khalil Mack. They have some weapons on the defensive line that I think is going to give Mixon a hard time running the ball. So I think it's Chargers in the under. If I had to play a total, which I hate totals, but if you ask me what I thought the score would be, 20-17, something like that, I can see, so I think the Chargers are the better team. And I think they'll end up in Kansas City next week.
Yeah. So I agree with you that I think the Chargers are a better team, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to execute against this defense. I mean, I Dobbins questionable, Gus Edwards questionable, Disley's going to play, Quentin Johnson and Palmer questionable, and then you look at Houston's secondary, okay, who's very, very good. And
Stingley Jr.
Stingley is incredible. He's a
Yep.
complete shutdown corner.
Yep.
And they have Jeff Okudah, who's questionable. They brought him in to actually back up Lassiter, who, by the way, this is a little weird tidbit, but McConkey, they asked him who the best cornerback is in the NFL, and he said Lassiter. Now, maybe it's because they both went to Georgia together and they were on the same team.
Probably.
They won a national championship together.
Probably.
However, if you think about the fact that Lassiter was the one covering him in practice for 3 years, that's meaningful. So he's going to match up against him. Stingley can shut down anyone, and I don't even know who's going to be healthy. So it's kind of I think I agree with you that the under is probably the right side here.
Yeah.
I see a very low scoring game where the Houston will self-destruct on offense, and the Chargers will get shut down by Houston. And so I don't even know who's going to end up winning the game, but I kind of like the fact that Houston is getting points at home when it kind of feels like maybe they should be a favorite. Like I don't know why the Chargers.
I understand kind of what you're saying.
I don't understand how the Chargers are a road favorite in a playoff game in this situation. I think
the personnel is there, and I think Houston has really struggled all year to prove anything to anybody. I don't think Houston's been very good.
Yeah,
they're just a flawed team. Their roster isn't great. They got a lot of injuries on offense. Their skill position players are not great. The backups to those guys. I mean, if they had Diggs and they had Tank Dell and they had, a full complement of people, maybe, but Harbaugh's still going to be the guy on the sideline that's going to outsmart this guy, DeMeco Ryans. I mean, I got to believe that Harbaugh is going to win this game. I don't care if he wins it by 1 point, but I still think the Chargers are going to find a way to get through and get themselves to Arrowhead the following week.
Yeah.
Which will be a really interesting matchup if you ask me.
Okay. So let's see. I mean, look, I plan on sending out the newsletter on Saturday morning. So maybe, we won't agree on a side here, but we may agree on a total. And I think that's okay for the playoffs. Like we're starting over from scratch.
Yeah.
But start and do like we're, what was our record? 50% for the regular season. Let's have a postseason record. We'll add totals in there because I think in certain situations like this game, we're not going to agree on the side or think it, or just it'll be a pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to have to pick every game.
Okay.
So let's move on to your game, Pittsburgh. I think the 10s are gone, and I like that number. But I'll let you start. Go ahead. You guys can.
I jumped on that 10. I mean, I jumped on it when I saw it. There's a lot of things about this game. I don't think many people in the gambling community, on television, the analyst community are giving the Steelers much of a chance. Listen, they stumbled down the stretch, 0-4 in the last 4, well documented. Some tough losses against some good teams. Baltimore's been playing out of their mind. Lamar is probably the MVP, 41 touchdowns, 4 picks, 4 rushing touchdowns. I mean, I never seen anything more impressive numbers-wise than that. I know he struggles in the playoffs. He's 2-4 in his career. The Steelers, I think, got lucky here with this matchup, if that's possible, playing a division team that you know well for a third time where you've already split. So there's familiarity there. I don't think they're going to be intimidated at all about going into Baltimore. So that's an advantage for the Steelers as opposed to going to Buffalo, in the first round and getting your ass kicked like we did last year. So 10 points is a lot to me. I will say this, I keep thinking as a Steeler fan about 05-06, where we were the 6th seed. That was the last time the Steelers were a 6th seed. And they proceeded to win 3 straight road games and a Super Bowl, knocking off the 1, 2, and 3 seed on the way to doing that when no one gave them a chance to win any of those games. So we're in a similar spot. Russell Wilson's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He came here to do this. I know it doesn't surprise me that everyone would be betting Baltimore. They could, their offense is elite. And the one thing about them that I think we're catching a break on is Zay Flowers' knee is not practiced. He does have a bad right knee. I don't think he's going to play. Adam Schefter says he doesn't think he's going to play. That's a huge loss for them. Huge. That's like us playing without Pickens. So that's big for us. And Kyle Hamilton got nicked up, and he's their best defender. So I will say this. No, I'm not going to get many people that agree with me on this, but I took the 10 points. And I couldn't resist myself at 85-1 to win the Super Bowl, to throw $100 on that, because I've seen a lot of times. I had this bet with the Rams years ago, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. And I cashed the ticket very similar to this. So this one's a little bit more in my heart, and I get it. And I know Baltimore is streaking right now. They're probably the best player on the planet. I mean, you could argue between him and Josh, right? So it's not going to be a popular pick, but I took the 10. I think it's too many points. I think we'll be in the game. And if things go our way, listen, we got to get Cam Hayward and Boswell back. They both had the flu, but I think they're going to play. But other than that, we're healthy. Should be in this game. I'd be surprised if we're not. At the same time, I know we haven't won a playoff game since 2016, and there's a lot of negative talk about Tomlin and his leadership ability, his coaching ability, and all this stuff. So it's going to be interesting. I hope we're staying in the game. If we're in the game in the fourth quarter and I had money on Baltimore, I'd be very scared, very nervous.
Yeah, good take. And I agree with most of what you said. And I think maybe as an AFC North guy, I'm just so familiar with both of these teams and this matchup, much more so than I think your average fan and sports bettor. I think, came out at 8.5, and they quickly took the teasers away from people and drove it up to like where it is right now.
Yeah.
So you're going to make them, lay more than 3.5. I kind of see this coming down to a 3-point, a field goal type game, like most of these matchups are between these two teams.
Usually it's a one-score game.
Right? One-score game. It would not surprise me at all. I think in the second game, like a lot of people are looking at that blowout, which I think was a 20-point win for the Ravens.
Yeah.
You guys were missing. I know Joey Porter didn't play in that game, and I'm pretty sure Ogunjobi was also out.
Yep.
That's a huge reason to me why you lost badly in that game. And I also agree with you on the Zay Flowers thing. Like, him not playing is big.
Huge.
You're going to blitz a lot. You're going to probably be successful, a good percentage of the time when you blitz. The run defense for Pittsburgh is definitely concerning. But I think the bigger question mark that everybody has is the offense.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Are you going to be able to score? And I think the answer to that is yes. Like, it's been really ugly the last month, especially with Pickens. But I agree with you. The playoff experience of Wilson, like the fact that you're going to have like a level-headed quarterback who's won Super Bowls and MVPs is so big in the playoffs.
I do think it matters.
That Baltimore's on the list of teams that have like a middle of the road defense. They can be beat. And they're going to give up points. So I think, like, are you going to win the game? I think that's a lot to ask, and I would be very surprised if that happens. But I could see this being very close, and Lamar or Henry. Look, we saw it last week, and we ended up getting the cover because we were on Baltimore against Cleveland. But
yes,
I know it sounds like such a cliche at this point, but Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter, he wears teams down all game long, and then suddenly he breaks free.
Yeah.
And if he did that again this week, no one would be surprised.
That's what he does. And he's averaged 99.8 yards per game, I think, for the back half of the season. So the Baltimore offense, I think without Zay Flowers, I think you can commit another guy in the box. I'll tell you, Minka has been really quiet this year for the Steelers. He has had a really nondescript year. He hasn't made any plays. These are the type of games where that guy sticks his head up and all of a sudden makes a play. The other thing that's huge for the Steelers, I think, is we get DeShaun Elliott back, who's played for the Ravens last year. We signed him as a free agent. And we have Dante Jackson back. So, like, we have a full complement now of our defenders. Even Kelly Holcomb, who had not Kelly Holcomb, the kid who had the bad knee injury. Yeah, he's been practicing all week. Yeah. He's a great run stopper. I don't know if he's going to see game action, but he's practicing again. And you put him with the Landon Roberts in middle linebacker with these other kids we have running around. I think it gives us a better chance to stop the run. I don't think you can stop Derrick Henry. And I'm not going to be that stupid, but I think you can slow them to a point where without Zay Flowers, all they have really is Bateman out there and Mark Andrews, who's a cover nightmare. I mean, he's a matchup nightmare. And of course, they have Likely, who also is great. So their tight ends now are the guys that we have to stop with Derrick Henry. I think if we can do that, we can be in this game. Also, the one other thing, Jack, is Justin Fields is not injured anymore. Arthur Smith has said, and Tomlin, that they will use Justin Fields. Like, they have packages for him, that they're definitely going to be using him this week. Yeah. So it just makes it harder for Baltimore to figure out how to defend those plays, you know? So yeah. I think all in all, 10 points to me is too many points.
I agree. Let's move on to the Sunday game at 1:00, which is Denver at Buffalo. Got any thoughts here?
I really like I like Denver's defense. I think 8.5 is a big number, but I can also see it really snowballing if Denver's defense is not able to contain Josh and do the things they need to do to keep the game close. I just don't know if Bo Nix, as a young quarterback, has the ability to go into Buffalo and put up points. They did beat them last year, I believe, if you look back, in a playoff game, right? I mean, didn't Denver go in there and beat them? Or was that a regular season game?
Yeah, that was regular season.
Yeah, either way, though, like, I mean, Denver's gone there and won. I know there was a famous playoff game. I sent it out to you guys last week. The John Elway game where it was a 10-7 loss. But, Buffalo's offense, I think, is way better, and Josh Allen's playing at another level. The thing is, Denver's defensive line is the best in football. And they talk about a corner. I mean, they have Pat Surtain Jr. In that, in the secondary as well. I think Denver can keep this game close. Like, I want to believe they can. I just don't know on offense if they're going to make a lot of mistakes. Is this guy Bo Nix going to turn the ball over and not kind of rise to the occasion? That would give me pause, but man, 8.5 just seems like a lot. I mean, on paper, I don't know how you feel about it, but
I like Buffalo. I think, from everything I'm hearing and reading, I think it really sets up well for them, especially they play man defense and Josh Allen destroys people who play man defense. And this is going to be no exception. He's gonna, I see him, like, they're going to be blitzing, and I see the dump off pass, going for 40 yards.
James Cook.
Yeah. Cook for just gashing. And I'm in general this weekend going to be going against these rookies. Jaden Daniels also. And I think, look, the Browns put up 32 points against these guys in Denver. I mean, what is Buffalo going to do? It's the same defense. They were all healthy that game. I mean, Jameis Winston lit these guys up. What is Josh Allen going to do? And I think in that crazy environment, you can't make Denver's going to have to play a perfect game to stick around. And, look, there's definitely some cases to be made for Denver. Like, if they play control like they love to do, and they are very good at running the ball, like, they're going to try to slow this whole thing down. And I don't think, Buffalo's run defense is that great, even though on paper it actually is. But I think they didn't really have to play a lot of run defense until late in the game. So it's a little bit misleading. But that said, I would not bet against, looking for like a solid teaser leg. I think you got it right here. You only have to lay 2.5 because it's 8.5 right now. So I love the Buffalo and a teaser. And if you can match that up, with some of the other things that we're talking about.
I like that. I think that's the way to go. I'd rather listen, if Denver is going to lose this game, more than likely they're going to lose this game by like 3 touchdowns. Like, they're either going to get smoked in this game, or they're going to be right there at the end with a chance to win this game, which, similar to the game they played at Cincinnati, where, they made that miraculous play at the end of the game and they got the game to overtime. Like, they're a pretty gutsy team, Denver. Like, Bo Nix to me is not generally, I don't look at him really as a rookie quarterback. I mean, the guy spent like 6 years in college and played a lot of big games, and he's got Sean Payton, who happens to be a really good coach for quarterbacks. So I think Sean's going to
playing, no matter how many college games you play, that's not playing in Buffalo for a playoff games. I mean, much better quarterbacks than he have lost there. Like people with the name Lamar Jackson have struggled to win there.
Yeah, no, listen, I get it. It's hard not to like Buffalo in this game. I mean, the whole country is going to be on Buffalo in this game. I would imagine the line will probably get to 10 by kickoff. People will, depending on how much.
I think so. I think there's plenty of support for Denver, and I think for good reason. Like they really do.
I mean, their defense is the whole thing. If their defense is very heavy, they have really good defensive line play. Yeah. They hold teams to not a lot of yards. I mean, I think they had number 1 in the league yards against as a defense, or at least top 5. So this is a team that doesn't even allow 300 yards a game normally. Yeah. So I get it's on the road. I get it's Buffalo. I think Buffalo's kind of on this magic carpet ride this season. Like I get a feeling about them that they're like sort of a team of destiny in a weird way.
Me too.
And that would scare me,
I think the again, because Buffalo's defense is not that great. So this total of 47, I kind of see as part of a play here.
Oh, it could go over.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I think it could go over. If Nick's is going to hit Sutton and they're going to hit some plays down the field, Denver, that's the whole thing. Like I think if you like the over, you may like Denver just with the 8.5 is even if you're down 14 late, you may get that backdoor cover. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be one of those high scoring games where it's like 31-20 late. And all of a sudden you get a not meaningless, but like a late Denver score, even if it's a field goal to make it 8 and you still cover, you know what I'm saying? Like, cause they'll have to have 2 scores anyway, that kind of a scenario. If that kind of thing plays out, I could see that in this game, but it's very hard to go against Josh.
I even like the team total Buffalo Bills. I think it's 27.5. I mean, we don't offer that. I want to make a bet, but that's like just assuming that Buffalo is going to go nuts and score, and their defense, who knows, because it's not elite, right? So like I also like the strategy that I talked to Brad about, which was, you bet Denver with the 8.5. And you lock that in, and maybe Buffalo gets a slow start or Denver starts driving,
and you middle it,
controlling the clock, and suddenly you had an opportunity to bet Buffalo -2.5.
Yeah,
you have a nice middle there because they've won a lot of I mean, they were down 14-0 to Buffalo. I mean, to New England. So it's like, could they go down to Denver? Sure. Will they come back? I have no doubt, but I don't think they can lose this game. I know
it would be shocked. It would shock the world if they lost this game. I'll tell you the way they can lose this game. If you get, and you haven't had this all year from Josh. Josh has not turned the ball over this year. But if you get the old Josh Allen where they're frustrated and he tries to take the game into his own hands, he throws that deep ball up at the double coverage and he gets a strip sack fumble.
Yeah.
If you get that old school Josh game where he tries to do too much and he turns it over 3 times, they could lose. But I don't think you're going to get that. I think he's a different player. I think he's matured. He's learned. He doesn't need to have all that on his shoulders. He's getting the ball out. He's spreading it around to like 9 different guys in a game. Yeah. Like even the backups are making plays. So I think he's playing cerebrally at another level right now. So that would make me nervous about Denver with 8.5, because you may, at the end of the day, after that game's over, you might look at yourself and say, wow, how did I think 8.5 was enough in this game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you said earlier, I totally agree with. I could see Buffalo out to a huge lead and you sitting there with a Denver ticket saying to yourself, okay, all they have to do now is come down and score, and then score again real quick. And then if they get the 2-point conversion, I can do that. Now you start doing that gambler math.
You start doing the gambler math. Yeah, it's so great. I love it. It's so funny. Everybody does it too.
Start calculating. Okay, all they have to do now is score, then score again real quick. And
you know who loves that? Michael, my stepdad. He texts me all the time, like in game, live, and he predicts shit a lot that he's right about. Like if they do this, they're going to get this. We're going to get a turnover here. Blah blah. It's amazing. But it's couch coaching basically.
Yeah. It's awful too when you have to build those scenarios and start building those stories. All right, so it looks like we're leaning Buffalo in that game. We'll see by Saturday morning if that ends up being something that we agree.
I think definitely in a teaser, like you said. I don't love teasers in general, but if you're going to play them, I mean, Buffalo -2.5 seems logical.
Yeah, maybe we'll actually in the newsletter like recommend a teaser.
We've never done it.
I guess we just things we don't do during the regular season
Yeah.
because we're just all about ATS.
Nothing wrong with it.
Okay. Next is the Packers. 4.5 and 45.5. What do you think?
I think there's a lot of injury news around this thing. I think Jalen Hurts practicing was big, so I think he's definitely going to play. And I heard good things about him coming out of practice, that he kind of looks just like himself. So that's really good to hear for Philadelphia. Obviously, this game would be much different if he gets knocked out of the game or couldn't go. You know, concussion's a serious thing. I don't know now how willing Philadelphia is going to be to design runs for Jalen in this game. I think that's a big part of their game, is that RPO stuff with Jalen where he tucks it and runs sometimes. And obviously, you know, you get the tush push usually 2-3 times a game, right? Where he's got to put his head in there and get the first down. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and how that affects the play calling in this game. I like Green Bay's defense. I don't like them as much without Zaire Alexander, who unfortunately, as you know, is out for the year. They put him on IR. And Chris Watson, who, I mean, isn't a great wide receiver, but he has made plays for them. He's out of the game. The good news for them is Dobbs is coming back. He's been practicing. So the problem, you know, last week, I don't know if you saw, but in the Chicago game, Love got injured. He hurt his elbow and he had no feeling down to his hand. So he on Monday said that the hand was okay and he got his feeling back and he was gripping the ball well. But yesterday he kind of had a different tune to that. So, I mean, if this guy can't grip the ball like properly and can't feel has nerve damage in his throwing hand, that's a problem for Green Bay. Because also the backup got knocked out of the game, Malik Willis. So I would imagine Love's going to play. And I heard these guys this morning on Get Up, a couple quarterbacks, Orlovsky and some other guy, I forgot his name, was saying like when you have a little nerve issue in your hands, you'll see the quarterbacks wear a glove a lot of times to give them a little bit more of a sticky grip on the ball. But they said basically, listen, if he can't grip the ball, he's not going to play. Like they're not going to let him play. If he's out there, they're confident he's going to be able to make all the throws. So to me, this game, it comes down to 4.5 points. Let's assume both quarterbacks are healthy. I think 4.5 is too many. I like Philadelphia's defense. I think they're elite. And, you know, you got the two great wide receivers and obviously you have Saquon. But, you know, Green Bay finds themselves in a lot of close games against good teams. They don't win them. I think they're 0-5 or 0-6, 0-5. They lost twice to Minnesota, twice to Detroit, and once to Philadelphia, and they didn't cover in Philadelphia. That was that weird Brazil game early in the year in the rain. Yeah. I just throw that out. But so they're in these games. 4.5 to me is too many points. I like Green Bay with the points.
Okay. I like Philly. Under the assumption, it's a huge injury assumption, but I think it's worth making and not waiting. And that's my point with this, is that if Jordan Love did not play in this game or was announced that he was hurt and he's not starting, the line would be 8.5.
10.
Yeah. Let's just say more than a touchdown. I would say 8.5.
Yep.
And no one's better at lying about the status of players' injury than LaFleur, with the exception of Shanahan. So you really never know what the injury status is with their team specifically, and he's great at it.
Yep.
I don't know what the fuck was going on when Jordan Love stood up and was throwing the ball at the end of that game, like he might come in. I actually think that was a strategy to sort of throw off Philly, because if he's actually hurt, they don't want Philly preparing for Malik Willis. So he was trying to like get him up. Hey, pretend like you're fine and throw a few balls right now, so they think that you're going to start. But if he doesn't go, and with Watson out, and I actually believe that Green Bay's defense is like overrated. Like they're fantastic at home. Don't get me wrong.
Well, they're missing their best guys. Zaire Alexander is out, so it's kind of hard. It's easy to say that now, but if Zaire Alexander was playing and he's covering number 11, it's a different ball game.
I know, but I'm just saying, I think their defense is artificially ranked a little bit high.
Okay.
And I think like when they go up against great offenses like this one, and I'll use Detroit as an example, they looked horrible. They got blown out.
Yeah.
And I just think it's worth rolling. And Philly's so good at home. They have so many offensive weapons. And I am banking on the fact that Jalen Hurts is completely healthy. And I think on the flip side of what like LaFleur did with Jordan Love is like what the Eagles have done with Hurts is that they sort of shut him down after the concussion, and like he finally exits the protocol like this week. But I assume he's going to be 100% healthy. Now, could he have used a few reps down the stretch? For sure. And might they get a slow start in the first quarter? Like I kind of expect it.
Yeah.
But I think they win this game by margin. And by that, I mean by at least a touchdown. And I think they have a good enough defense to shut down this offense, even if they were healthy. And I don't think they're healthy. And I think Jordan Love is like, 50-50. Who knows if he's going to even make it through the game? And if he does, it's going to be like a bad performance. It's going to be bad Jordan, like throwing interceptions to defensive linemen. So I like Philly.
Okay. Listen, so it doesn't even sound like you would take 10.5 here in a teaser on the back end of that teaser to me. You think that this is a blowout.
Right.
I think Jalen Hurts
tease Philly.
I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a rusty. It's never easy to miss 3 weeks, come back in and start in a playoff game. Philly has had their ups and downs at home in the playoffs, well documented. Green Bay always plays them tough. So if let's assume Jordan and Jalen are both healthy and they're ready to go. I know Green Bay is getting players back on defense. Quay Walker's coming back. Some guys that have been missing are coming back. So I think with Josh Jacobs, he's such a threat. He's been so incredible in Green Bay. It was one of the great signings of the offseason, I thought, was Green Bay picking up Josh Jacobs. He's just been a dominant runner, similar to Saquon. So this game, to me, could easily be a back and forth kind of affair with the two running backs. Those teams have receivers that can make plays. And both, I think you got to give the coaching edge to LaFleur. No, I mean, a little bit over Sirianni. I do. But, that remains to be seen, I suppose. But 4.5 to me seems like a lot, considering if Jordan's healthy, I'm going to take the 4.5. I do think the Eagles win, and I think they will advance in this game.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree on the coaching edge at the head coach, but I think Vic Fangio like makes up in spades for that.
Yeah.
I kind of see him like if God forbid Philly loses this game, I could see him getting fired and Fangio getting this job, but it doesn't matter. I think like the story for me in this game is the Jordan Love injury, the Philadelphia defense, and just the full health of Jalen Hurts. And I
think Jalen Carter is probably the best player on the field on both teams. I mean, the guy's just a dominant wrecking force on defense, unblockable. He's going to make some plays, and Philly's secondary's been better.
Speaking of teasers, by the way, I like matching up that, that now that we're sort of talking about it out loud and the timing of it, I like also would be to put this with Buffalo, and then you have Philly +2.5. You have
+2
or -2.5. Yeah, I don't know 4.5.
It's 4.5. You'd be +2, I think, is what you'd be maybe, or +1.5.
Right. Well, 2.5. You get 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on. The Sunday night game, Commanders Bucks. I'm not going against Baker. And again, I'm going against a rookie quarterback. I think like Todd Bowles is going to be blitzing the living daylights out of him. They're finally getting a little bit more healthy on defense, the Bucks, that is. And I think they're. This is a weird one because I don't think no matter who wins this game, they're going to lose next week. And I also think like Jaden Daniels, like that little shit gets so lucky, and I think that luck is going to run out this week. Like the amount of plays that he's made on 4th down with his legs this season
and his arm.
and his arm, but so many critical fourth down conversions and comebacks. And it's just sort of like, I just feel like, again, in the playoffs, and you said it earlier, and I totally agree, those kinds of plays don't seem to happen as much. Like the magic, when every single play of the game is so important.
Yeah.
I think they're going to want to run the ball, right? And the Bucks are fantastic at stopping the run. Like that's their sweet spot. Like you can beat them deep, but you're going to try to run the ball on Tampa, and Vita Vea is going to be standing there waiting for it. It's going to be tough. So you're going to force Jaden Daniels into that situation again, where he's going to have to, make some magic. I think it's asking too much. I actually don't love. There's parts of me that like him and like Washington in this game. Like this is not a game I feel strongly about, but if you forced me to pick this one, I would go with Tampa.
I think the numbers support what you're saying as far as betting against rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs. There aren't many of them that have a lot of success. So you're standing on numbers that make sense statistically. Jaden Daniels, to me, is an elite rookie quarterback. He's doing things I'm amazed at how mature he is for his first year in the NFL. It's just incredible. And if you read what his teammates say about him in the locker room, they're amazed as well. So I don't know if it has to do with the way he's been doing this virtual reality shit. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that he doesn't go out, he doesn't drink, he doesn't party, he doesn't have bad friends. He's a focused guy. And he's, well beyond his years when it comes to that. And I think if you look at the elite quarterbacks ever, like a Brady or Peyton Manning or guys like that, these guys study the game 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they're not fucking around with chicks and clubs and dumb shit. Yeah. So he's like that. So I think that helps him in the preparation part of it. The other thing that I really am interested to see is Washington specifically made a trade for this guy Lattimore for this game. Lattimore has owned Mike Evans mentally, physically, and in the numbers in every game they've ever played. It's led to suspensions. It's led to fights.
Yeah. Granted, that was all those division games when he was on the Saints.
I'm just saying that is a matchup that he's going to be right in his face from the minute that game tips off. And to me, Tampa is just not as good with that when Mike Evans is taken out of a game, especially without Godwin. Especially. So I know they have this kid McMillan. He's been good. Bucky Irving has been unreal. I think Tampa's got a lot of injuries too. When I saw that list, I was like, wow, man, they came out of this game with a lot of injuries. So I'm not going to bet this game.
By the way, speaking of injuries, Todd Bowles indicated yesterday that he was feeling confident about Otten, that he was trending in the right direction.
That would be big.
Huge.
That would be huge for them. If Otten plays, he makes up for Godwin and gives them another option.
Right. I think he's going to play. And
that's
good point. Good point about Lattimore.
Yes.
And I think like the year that Evans just had, he would like nothing more than that matchup in a playoff game, which he really never has had. It's always those division games against the Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah. No love lost between those two.
I think that Washington, I think Jaden's going to be good enough and make enough plays to be in this game. And I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think that they're going to be able to move the ball and score on Tampa. I think Baker's going to be able to score on them. And yeah, if I have to bet it, I would say Tampa Bay probably wins the game. I won't bet this game because to me, it's a field goal game and it's a coin flip game. Yeah, and I just have I like the over maybe I just think there's going to be points, but I hate playing totals because a lot of times
it's the highest one of the week, by the way. It's surprising.
Is it really?
Yeah. Well, it's 50,
51.
No, 50. Yeah. 50.
Yeah.
The highest one of the week.
I think the game could be played in the 30s. So, but
I think it was
neither here nor there.
20.
I'm not great at predicting totals and I'm not about to do it. I think the game's going to be close. It's the field goal line. I think they got the line perfect, and it wouldn't surprise me if Washington beat them. But at the same time, it's hard to bet against Baker.
You know what's not going to surprise me? This is my hot take on this game.
Yeah,
Jaden Daniels is frail, And I have said that a couple times this year. I thought that one game he looked like he was cold. Last week against Dallas, he got hit twice. Shut him down quickly. Put Mariota in there right away. Like I feel like he is, and he loves to run, and he needs to bulk up. Like when I look at him physically, it kind of reminds me of like, when Michael Jordan first came into the league and the Detroit Pistons were just kicking the shit out of him and he had to go into the gym. I think he's going to come to that realization this offseason. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he gets knocked out of this game. There's my take.
Okay. That could happen. Tough to bet on. I have no idea, but I think if he's in the game, I would anticipate neither team blowing the other team out in this game. I really think this is going to be a close one. And I think there's going to be some offense on both sides. It's a very hard game to call. So
I don't want to be on either side here. Maybe there's a good live bet, but I really look forward to watching this game.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback play.
Both of them are so entertaining.
Yes, the quarterback play on both these teams all year has been really, really good. Yes. I mean, we can't argue with that. I mean, the quarterbacks have been great. So it'd be fun. It's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yep. All right, last game of the week, Vikings-Rams. I sort of, mentioned this earlier, so I'll start here. I was shocked and at the same time excited at the way that the entire country reacted to them losing to Detroit last Sunday night. I mean, it was the last game of the year. They lost the Central. They lost the number 1 seed. And the fact that everyone was sort of singing their praises, with the exception of 2 weeks during the season, of how great the Vikings were and how great Darnold was. And then after one bad game, they basically sold them down the river. And, he had a bad game. He missed 10 throws. By the way, he didn't miss them by much. They weren't like horrible overthrows like you see sometimes Jalen Hurts throw 15 feet over some guy's head. These were just barely out of the reach of the receiver. And, he had a bad game. But I think there's a massive overreaction to that loss. And I'm excited to back Minnesota in this game. I think they're going to get back and play Detroit again in either the NFC Championship game or the following week. I'm not sure how it shakes out. And I'm not impressed with what the Rams have done over the past month. Their offense has really struggled, and maybe McVay has been, waiting to pull out the good plays for a game like this.
Yep.
And I know he and McConnell are like best of friends. McConnell was obviously used to be part of that staff. And, everyone's saying, oh, well, McVay knows McConnell so well because he used to be his defensive coordinator. Well, guess what? McConnell knows McVay. He coached with him, so he knows all his tricks also. So I don't think there's a lot to be, disguised between the two of them. And I think that, the Rams don't have the defense that Minnesota does. And I know Stafford's better than Darnold. Fine, he's got the edge there. But the Rams, as much as they disguise shit, I think they can be predictable. Every time Nakua goes in motion, he's going to get the ball. So everyone knows that at this point. And I think the Vikings have the defense to slow them down or stop them. Plus, they haven't really looked good. It's just like Houston. Like, what? Suddenly they're going to snap out of it and put up 35 like they did against Buffalo, or are they going to be like they've been the last month? So that's a long way of saying I like Minnesota. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there is something to say from like the betting community taking their last performance and making an overreaction to it. I mean, it happens all the time. So, people saw that game. The whole world watched that game, right, last week, and
suddenly
Sam Darnold basically had a number of red zone chances, and he missed about 4 or 5 throws in the red zone, a few of them for touchdowns. They were bad throws. And, they kicked some field goals and they went for it on 4th down and they didn't get it. And, they got embarrassed. I mean, they got killed in the game. So there was a 2.5 point line. They lost by 20. They were never in the game really. Once they got away from them. But does that mean that they can't go into this game and they're a slight favorite, right, at the Rams? They had a game earlier in the year where they went to the Rams where they lost on a night game. That was
Which
the famous game.
By the way, we predicted that. That was
we had the Rams, but that was the game I talked about where he got hit in the head in the end zone, and the whole thing with the eye in the sky not being there. And I think that's another discussion for next year. I would like to see the eye in the sky take over the majority of the games. Honestly, I just think we're at that point. They do it in college. They should kind of do it here, but that's another discussion. I think the market has fell in love with the Rams simply because Matt Stafford has proven he can go to a Super Bowl and win it. I think that McVay has proven he has the pedigree to do it. Kyren Williams is a guy that seems to score every week. He's a real danger on the running the ball. I know Minnesota's running back's very good. Aaron Jones. I'm not saying I think they have a great offense. This is going to be a shootout game. Flores, obviously, Minnesota blitzes a lot. Stafford can take a beating a lot of times. And the last time they played, I think Stafford played the best game he's played all year, maybe other than that Bills game where they had the 44 points and they beat the Bills at home. So I would think a high scoring game, a shootout game. Again, very hard to predict. There's a lot of people that I'm reading about that have the Rams going to the Super Bowl this year. I mean, a lot. I haven't seen anybody with Minnesota in the Super Bowl. Nobody.
This is the worst. This is the worst defense of any.
Statistically, the Rams defense, I know they have the 3 young kids and they rotate them up front on the defensive line, but I think their back end is terrible.
This is the worst.
Their linebackers are terrible.
Of all 14 teams in the playoffs, this is the worst one. They're ranked.
Yeah.
They have them ranked 26.
I would be stunned if the Rams made it through the gauntlet of the NFC and actually got to a Super Bowl. I just don't see it happening. I know the offense.
Also, going back to last week, like if Darnold has enough time, he's picked apart anybody he's faced this year. He didn't have the time last week against Detroit, and I think that was really the main factor. And again, his throws were not that far off, but they were off. He missed them. I mean, bad on him, but still, I think his average time, to throw the ball was sped up by like 1 second in that game. And if he has time to pick apart this Rams defense, which ranks 26 against the pass, I don't think he'll struggle. I think he bounces right back and has a great game.
Yeah, I mean, I put Minnesota
because of the fires.
I got a better line. I got a -1. I waited, so I had Minnesota in my parlay. I put a 5-team parlay in, which I probably won't hit, but just for fun, I put it in Megabucks. But I do have Minnesota as the last leg -1. I kind of agree with you on the fact that they've kind of been taken down like way too many pegs off one performance. Yeah. And the Rams down the stretch, although they did win all those games, they won them in ugly fashion.
I know, but the NFC, you have to agree with me that the NFC West fell to pieces. Like that division, like between the 49ers and Seattle and Arizona just became so weak. And I would throw the Rams into that bucket also,
Yeah, and listen, they had a really bad start. Remember early in the year, they had everybody injured, the offensive line. They had no Cooper Kupp. They had no, so the Rams are, listen, you got to give them credit for making the playoffs. I mean, they did win that division, right? They outlasted everybody. They got it done. They have a quarterback who's won a Super Bowl. They have a coach who's won a Super Bowl. They have good skill position players. They're young on defense, and they have a home game
because of all that.
And they have a home game, against a team like Minnesota, which a lot of people thought at 14-2 were kind of paper. They weren't really a 14-2 team, because Sam Darnold.
The sentiment right now.
What?
That's clearly the sentiment right now.
Totally. I mean, listen, people are jumping on Sam Darnold and saying, hey, he's reverted back after one game to the Sam Darnold that we watched for 7 years. So you got to remember, though, he's had an extraordinary year with O'Connell. He's a great quarterback coach. I think one performance does not make up for a whole season. Like, the guy's had a great season. He has elite wide receivers. I mean, Jefferson and Addison together with Hawkinson and Aaron Jones are lethal offense in the NFL. I mean, come on. So they're going to score a shit ton of points in this game. The Rams are not going to stop them from scoring. But is Minnesota's defense going to be able to hold up against Stafford, who, has already picked them apart once this year? Does he do it again? He had a 4 touchdown game against them early in the year.
Yeah. Sounds like you like the over.
I do. I think it's a high scoring game. 100%. Yep.
All right, my man. That brings us to the end of this wild card weekend. Got a lot of great games. I'm excited to watch these. We've got the college football Final Four kicking off tonight. You got any opinion on the Notre Dame, Penn State?
Well, I know Reed and I know Reed and Mosk and Gary are all going to the game, and they're all big Penn State guys. So I'm going to take Penn State.
Yeah, me too. I kind of like, maybe I'm a little bit biased on the Big Ten, but I think I kind of agree with Reed that, Notre Dame's strength of schedule, with the exception of that ASU game, was not that great. And I think the week in, week out, difficulty of playing in the Big Ten against teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Indiana is going to really pay dividends for Penn State, and they have a much better offense. Yeah, and I think if Georgia even had a remotely good quarterback, that backup was horrible.
They would have won.
Notre Dame's defense is good, but my God,
they would have won.
Georgia was horrible on offense. They couldn't get a first down.
Thankfully, I missed that game. I didn't watch it, thankfully. But I will say it's interesting about college football, and I don't know as much about it as you, but I always thought that the SEC was a dominant league to the Big Ten. And I think this year, I think probably since Saban left, which is kind of an interesting timing point, I think it's kind of flipped a little bit. Like I feel like I definitely think this year, the better teams, there's a lot better football being played in the Big Ten and the SEC. And I can't remember my lifetime really feeling that way, but
is
that true? Do you agree with that?
Well, 100%. And I think there's also, think about it. There's this massive reshuffle that happened with all the conferences sort of merging together.
Yes.
Sort of the Pac-12 being eliminated, the Big 12 resurging.
Yeah, the landscape has changed.
The whole landscape changed. And then I think the even bigger point to make is everything that happened with the NIL. I mean, these guys, it's like sharks circling as soon as Saban left. And we were part of that also. We picked up Judkins from Alabama, and we also picked up Downs, our strong safety on Ohio State. I mean, everyone else in the Ohio State defense, which is the number one defense left in this playoff, they've all been in Ohio State for 4 or 5 years, with the exception of Downs. And Downs is he's like one of the best safeties. He's one of these legendary safeties from the NFL, like Polamalu. You know what I mean?
Wow, really?
His football IQ, he's just everywhere. He's everywhere to make a tackle, to make an interception, to stop something from happening. You know what I mean? He's just
and you have that linebacker that made 1 million tackles last week too. I don't know.
Oh, we have Cody Simon. We have this guy Sawyer.
Sawyer. That guy's unreal.
The defensive line is unbelievable.
And number 4 is an NFL player, the wide receiver.
The freshman.
Your kid, he's he's a freak.
I can't believe I blanked on his name.
Whatever, that guy dominated that game against Oregon.
Oh, he's ridiculous.
Yeah. So good luck to you. Hopefully we'll see whether it's Penn State or Notre Dame. I think it's going to be Ohio State. I know I can't imagine Texas. I just don't think they're good enough to beat Ohio State outright.
Sorry about that.
I just think Ohio State's going to end up in the championship game, and whether it's Penn State or Notre Dame, I don't think either team is going to be able to beat Ohio State. So I don't want to jinx you, but I think you're in a pretty good position here to win the national championship.
Yeah, I think Ohio State, their biggest hurdle right now is themselves. And I think if they just play their game, they have the most talent. And I think
as long as they don't have to play Michigan, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, and look, Ryan Day learned a very valuable lesson in that game against Michigan, which is, you can't be conservative. Just let these guys, you have so much talent on offense. If they're stopping the run, throw the ball and just keep throwing it.
Your quarterback in that game, Michigan game, looked horrible.
Yeah, well, I don't think they let him throw the ball, so it wasn't even necessarily him. Yeah, he did have the pick six, and he's played fantastic ever since. So
turned it around.
Yes.
All right. Well, good luck to you, and good luck to all the gamblers out there in Megabucks and want to make a bet. I know there's a huge lead in the New York League. Everyone's chasing, over 1 million units. It's going to be real tough. So most of us.
Before.
Most of us are playing for second, third, or fourth. Even you get 5% back for fourth. So I'm just going to try and do what I can to scrape my way along and have some fun with it. But probably out of the money this year for the most part.
One game at a time. And talking to Brad, like even they're not getting too excited. Like they have chasers. There's plenty of games left. There's 3 college football games left. There's, I don't know how many games and totals there are in the NFL, but plenty of time to catch up and just, as we say in golf, just play your game. You know what I mean? Don't worry about what the others are doing. It's that time of year where you got to be right and you got to pick winners.
Yep.
If you still manage your bankroll correctly and not too many parlays. Unless
I'll tell you what,
the people behind, I don't recommend
the people chasing, what the people chasing will need is they will need big time favorites to lose games and lose them by more than a touchdown, so that these teasers that everyone's going to be putting in on these big favorites.
Yes.
And a lot of times in the NFL, doesn't happen often, but when you get a hot team that's a lower seed and goes on a run and starts picking teams off, that's when it can happen. So I look forward to the NFL playoffs. I think anything's up for grabs. Everything that happened in the regular season is completely out the window. Absolutely meaningless. Doesn't mean a thing. This is a fresh start. This is a completely new season. You got to win 4 games in a row. That's what it is. And every team knows that. So
nothing would pay that off more than Baltimore losing.
That would be phenomenal for me. I would be,
first of all, game and wrecked every 3-team teaser and 4-team teaser.
Would be a great start to the weekend.
Reset, because I don't have any doubt in my mind that the Mason brothers are going to have the Baltimore Ravens in a 4-team or a 3-team teaser.
Yeah, well, listen, Brad told me, Hill goes as the Eagles go. So if Green Bay was able to pick off the Eagles and beat them outright, he might go to 0.
Yeah.
Good luck, everybody. Love you all. Thanks for listening to the podcast all year. Jack and I love having you guys making fun of us and sending us texts and emails and commenting on social media about, things that we get right, things we get wrong. It's all fun. So, don't bet too much money if you can't afford to lose it. That's the one advice I give everybody, because, gambling is a sickness, and I am sick.
Hey, and don't forget to get into the NFL Playoff League. We're giving away $100.
Yeah, let's go.
Entry is free, and so hope to see everybody there. All right, everybody. We'll catch you up. We'll catch up with you next week.
Next week. See you guys. Bye-bye.
See you, bud. Nice.
All right.